zapínač.
A jednička tam ještě, jednička.
Jo.
Zapínač. CZ. A pasta. 871? To je celý?
Ne, to je tohle za celý.
Aha.
Celý to abhlasov 2.871.
Heslo. Vyzkoušíme.
Aha.
Ano. Ne, nic nejde.
Ještě jednou. Jednou. Já už asi. Ne, tak.
Tak bylo to špatně.
Teď to heslo. Heslo. Tečka, tečka.
Tak, žlutý jeden, raz, dva, tři, 1, 2, 1, 2. Raz, dva, slyšíme se, 1, 2. Ne, pořád nic, už jo. A červený 1, raz, 2, 3. Všechno, to asi půjde, ne? Už úplně. Jo?
To včela ten heslo.
Pardon, taky komplikovaný. Nejde. Musel normálně jít. Aha. Taky pomalý.
Ještě, protože to...
Aha,
já už...
tady to. Něco zkousit. Je to mouse? Se mi nehybuje mouse.
To spíš podvedení vidět na tom. Tak, že ona není špatně vidět na tom.
Děkuju. Doufám, že to klapne, no.
Nevím, pro mě tam neskočilo něco s adminem ještě. Jako z toho notebooku. Což já logicky nemůžu dělat, ale notebooku. Protože pan mě tam chtěl, když nějakou jako nějakou certifikaci nebo taková, to chtěl oprávnit od administrátora.
Já právě nevím to heslo, no. Třeba to vypnu. Vy jste tady, nebo? Jo, dobře.
Žlutý, 1, raz, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1, 1. Tady to můžeš dát asi klidně hlasitějc ještě. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2. Raz, 2, 3, raz, 2, raz, 2. 1, 1, 1. Dobrý den. Jak to vypadá? Neslyšíme? Tak zkouším pořád počítat. Raz, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Raz, 2, raz, 2. Raz, 2, 3, už jo? Červený, 1, raz, 2, 3, červený, červený, raz, 2. Raz, 2. Promiň, nebyl asi zapnutý. Raz, 2, 3. 1, 1, 2, 1. Tady. Slyšíš ho tady? Jo, tady je potichu docela, ne? 1, 2, 3, 4. Jo, je? Tak, jo, dobrý. Červený 1, ten je dobrý. Raz, 2, 3, 4. Raz, 2, raz, 2. Je to dobrý? Raz, 2, 3. Dobrý. Modrý 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, raz, 2, raz, 2, 3. Dobrý? Dobrý.
Raz, dva, raz, dva. Ahoj, ahoj, čau, čau. Já to jsem. Dobrý den, good morning, dear friends, dear colleagues in front of the computers. I would like to welcome all of you and especially Svetlana Heger and our further guests I will introduce later at the second day of our mini conference, which is dealing with the questions of public interest and visual art. There are different zones which interacts with our professions like urbanism, architecture, ecology, sociology, and from our perspective as a Academy of Fine Arts, which hosts several departments which are somehow touched or grounded around the public space, we are very happy to have a guest with a particular professional experience in this sphere. So first we start with Svetlana Heger, visual artist born in Czech Republic. Svetlana grew up in Austrian city Bregenz, studied in Vienna at the University of Applied Arts in Wien, and she also attended postgraduate program at the Musashino Art University in Tokyo. She has been visiting professor at the School of Visual Arts in New York and professor and later vice rector and rector at Umeå University in Sweden. Currently, she is responsible for foreign relations, and she is head of the Faculty of Fine Arts at the Zurich University of Arts. With her artistic work, Svetlana Heger draws attention to the complex relations between private and public space, which will be also like the content or the subject of her talk presentation. The essential leitmotifs characterizing the work and the relation between art and business, and the redefinition of the artistic strategies, particularly at the background of the often invisible structure of art production and discussions. So, dear Svetlana, the microphone is yours, and thanks for coming once more.
Abych se nejdřív chtěla poděkovat po česky u Dušana a u Jitky za pozvání. Já jsem strašně ráda, že jsem tady a těším se a doufám, že se to bude pokračovat, ta spolupráce. A, and now I switch to English, also for the guests. So when I was invited, I was kind of thinking what could I present, and usually I present my own work, but I decided maybe it's a bit boring since I've done it so many times, and I would focus this time on working with students and my colleagues, since in the audience we have students as well, and teachers and pedagogues and people working for universities. And as Dusan mentioned, I am based in Zurich right now, where I'm heading the Department of Fine Arts at the Zurich University of the Arts. And I would like to give you a short introduction just to kind of understand what setting we are in. So as you know, Zurich is not such a big city. There's around 400,000 to 600,000 inhabitants, depending on the fluctuation of the employees coming in and out of the town. And yeah, it's this kind of cliche of a wealthy city, but also with some dark sides, as you will see. We have 3 or actually 4 different locations. The main campus is the Tony campus, which I will talk about a bit later as well. It's in the west of the city, in the District 5. Then we also have the Museum of Design, which is kind of closer to the center, and this is where the old academy used to be, Academy of Fine Arts. And then we have the theater complex at Gessner Allee, which is directly in the city. And I can show you the buildings. This is the Tony campus. It's quite massive building. It used to be an old yogurt factory and was converted into contemporary office and housing complex. And it's owned by a private corporation, and the corporation rents the space to the University of the Arts. So we are basically in the lower part of the building, and the top, as you see, are partly apartments, private apartments, very expensive. Next to us are two hotels. It's the Sheraton Hotel and the 25 Hours, and the rest is very industrious, as you see. There are lots of storage buildings for food, and also, of course, lots of artist studios in the old kind of factories, which are partly empty and so on. This is the Museum für Gestaltung, the Museum for Design. It's a very beautiful building from the 30s, and it mostly shows, it has a very good collection of design and also of posters, graphic design, and it shows different exhibitions related to the topic of design. The pity is that the school is not somehow involved in the program, so students or teachers are not connected to the curation of the program, and it often appears kind of as a separate kind of institution, and there's a strong wish from the teachers and also from the student side to be more involved, and we are just looking for a new dean, the president of the school, and we hope that the next person will be more kind of interested to start this kind of venture with all of our departments. This is the Gessner Allee, where the theater has their branch. It used to be old stables, horse stables, and they were converted into theater, dance, and different venues in the recent times. We have 5 departments. Before the school moved to the Tony campus, to the big building, they fused 5 departments together, which used to be separate institutions. So one of the departments which is now part of the Zurich University of the Arts is Performing Arts and Film, which also includes dance, contemporary dance and classic dance. And also it includes an academy for very young children from 11 on. They come from all over the world, and they live in a dorm, and they have their training in the mornings and schooling in the afternoon. The next department is Cultural Analysis, which includes art education and also curatorial studies. Department of Music, which is also, it's the biggest department in the school. They have a wide range from classical instrumental music to rock, pop, and jazz. Nevertheless, I think the best pop bands and music bands come from the fine art department, not from the music department. And so we sometimes also collaborate with the music department since they have really high-end equipment, and we are able to borrow it as well, so for different projects. The Department of Design, which has a strong focus on game design and health design. So but there's also scientific visualization, people working with hospitals and scientists. So it's also a very research-based program. And our department, the Fine Art Department, we are the smallest department of all. Nevertheless, we are comparable to the Performing Arts Department. We have, still, we are small, but we are big. When you compare it to other schools, we have around 250 to 280 students in the Fine Art Department. We have around 150 on the bachelor program and the rest on the master program. It's quite big, yeah. And I would like to show you a short film because during Corona we couldn't have an open day as we usually have it every year, so we decided to do everything online, as probably you did as well, and we shot a short film just to show the potential students what the situation is, and I try to play it. This was, of course, a promotion film for the candidates who are applying for the school. But I wanted to show you kind of how large the school is. And of course, we showed all these kind of facilities in the promotional film. But when the students arrived, we couldn't really offer it to them since there was a lockdown. I talked to my colleagues here. We were able to open the studios for the students 24 hours a day during the lockdown. So at least the students had access to use their material and their spaces, but all the teaching was online. We also have students run space outside of the school, which kind of I initiated because we don't really have exhibition spaces. It's what you saw in the film, it's offices, which we use as exhibition spaces. So when the building was planned, people didn't think of like facilities to present things. And every year we have to move out the studios in order to do the degree show. And so we were looking for other opportunities, and we have this kind of small storefront which is connected to a club in the basement on Dienerstraße. And Dienerstraße is kind of in a red light district in Zurich. Because maybe, as you know, prostitution is legalized in Switzerland. So this is kind of in this area where there are lots of bars and other establishments. And we opened it the first year to BA students, then it changed to MA students, and now it's again with the BA students. And it's an open call, and small groups can apply with a curatorial program. And so we had, and they can also name the space, so the name is changing all the time. The first one was St. Luke, then Alvista, now it's Satellite, and now it's going to switch again to the master program student. And they had different things. It's very cool always to go there because there's also a bar next door, so it's also kind of a way to socialize, and especially during Corona it was also quite popular because we could be outside and meet. And there were different projects, as you see, from drawings on the storefront to a radio to the first one, there was a fog inside. We also have the signage, which is always also designed by an artist, and it also changed. I think it's a lovely project on a small scale, but completely autonomous in the hands of the students. And they decide what they show, how they work, and of course they have certain responsibilities, and we have a contract with them as well. But it's working really, really well, and I'm very happy about that we could kind of realize it. This is just, again, to show you where we are. It is Kunsthaus Zürich, that's kind of the center around here, and we are kind of in the west of the city. And I also live in the west, and when I moved to Switzerland, when people asked me where do you live, and I said I lived in the west, and people kind of looked at me quite shocked because they couldn't believe that somebody who's like a university professor would move to this area. But I have to say I always prefer to live in a rather urban area than where things are still moving, and then to live in some kind of a central area where things are already completely set and fixed, and where there is no changing atmosphere. And so I really enjoy living in this kind of like residential community with people from around the world. It's also close to the school. I also enjoy that, to bike to the school. And I will show a few projects, small ones and bigger ones, connected to students. This was a course, an online course we started first, just to kind of activate the students and who were sitting mostly at home, maybe being in the studios, but not really connecting to each other. And I took the point of departure with a piece by Yoko Ono. It's called Draw a Map to Get Lost, and it's an instruction piece. And I asked the students, we could meet outdoors. So we met outdoors in a smaller group, and I asked them to show me their favorites, or like a place which is important for them, and where everybody has access to. And it was really like a cool thing. the people, for example, showed us a place where you can have bonfire, because Zurich has a lot of restriction and everything is perfect and orderly and correct, and everything follows the rules. So there were like places where things are possible out of the rules. We went to a kindergarten where somebody gets every day very emotional because they have to leave their child there and then they're looking forward to pick up the child in the afternoon again. We went to somebody who had a job during the time to see his workplace, and so on. So it was very small kind of interventions, but we kind of were able to walk around the city and look at things. This is a short description of the course. We were discussing other artists' intervention in the public space, and also small curatorial projects which are possible kind of without a big infrastructure behind it. We also went to look at lots of arts outside, and for that Zurich is, of course, or the environment, the neighborhood of Zurich is super good because there's a lot of art in public and kind of on a high-end level, also very interesting projects. For example, the one you probably all know by Fischli and Weiss, How to Work Better. It's a text piece on a building, which had been also reproduced, I think, in New York. We also went to St. Gallen, this Bibliotheurist, the Red Square. It's a quite large piece of land in the center of St. Gallen, which is covered with this red granulat. This is quite big, quite massive, and it was art in public. Because also in Switzerland, 1% of all buildings budgets have to go to, if they are public buildings, have to go to art in public. And actually Switzerland has two different funding systems. One is for art in public, and one is art with buildings, also when it comes to new. We could also see a rusty Richard Serra piece with lots of graffitis inside. And in St. Gallen, there's the University for Economy. It's quite famous university, high ranked in the world ranking for economical universities. So it's a place where usually art students don't go. But they have also lots of art in public around the building and in the building. It's also one of these brutalist concrete buildings as our building is, Tony Campus, and students suddenly saw there are some similarities. In the back you see a mural by Miro. There's a Gerhard Richter piece, quite prominent, and as you see how they kind of protect it with these little wooden poles. It's quite interesting solution I've never seen before. They have a Giacometti in the middle of the school, and it's also amazing to me that it never gets stolen because it's quite reachable, like you could kind of reach for it. I mean, I'm sure there's some high elaborate alarm system. There's a Hans Arp sculpture outdoors, and so on. In Zurich, also there are like interventions around area out of the city, this is quite in the city, it's close to this kind of red light district. At Limmatplatz, there's a permanent piece by Harun Farocki, Transmission, where he collaged gestures of hands dealing with money. And it also kind of relates to the city of Zurich, which is kind of like the banking center of Switzerland. And what you see are only hands making strange moves, but when you know what the piece is about, you understand the context quite quickly. And what we did in the end, since during Corona there were no concerts, no exhibitions, no events, all these public columns, which usually have all the posters on them with advertisement and announcements, were empty. So we went to ask the company if we could have some of these columns and make small projects with posters related to the subject. And the students did really great job. They were really fantastic to work with. And we had like 3 columns in the city which we could use and place the project. This is in Oerlikon, this is a little bit outside of the center. So we had also 2 different contexts. One was in the major hotspot, Bahnhofstraße, the most expensive street in the world, and one was in the outskirts, kind of where the regular life is happening. And these are the names of the students, so there was kind of a grid, but the grid was every time different, and they had their projects on, and they were very different, from photography to rather conceptual pieces, also political pieces. And it was an international group of students, and they didn't know each other before, so it was also good how they kind of worked together, because they had to work together and prepare everything together. And this was a Polish student who was on exchange in Zurich, and he was going from different spots, from spot to different spot within the city, and was marking them with like little shapes in pastel colors, and in the end he would come every day to the poster and add new spots on the map. This is the group of the students. Now I would like to show another project we are working on right now, and it's a commercial project, so we also are talking about different terms when it comes to working with public, who are the different stakeholders. And I know the students always kind of oppose such projects in the beginning, because they say, oh, why should we work for somebody who is like commercial and somebody who has a wealthy background and stuff. And when we read Production of Belief by Bourdieu, and then there's a lot of like hot discussions going on. But then I know when it comes towards the end of the study, the students start to come to us and ask for recommendation letters for foundations. And then I ask them, do you know that this foundation has also actually very similar background as like the project you were kind of refusing to collaborate on? And then we start to talk again, and then things are also changing. And of course we have so many students, and Switzerland is so small, and we have 5 really good art schools there, so the competition is high, and it's maybe also a little bit irresponsible that there are so many art schools, because all these people cannot become like famous artists or like established artists, so there has to be also different ways how people can make their living, and if they do it in a smart way, then there is nothing against it also to work with a private commissioner or a commercial profession. So this is Hotel Atlantis, and we were doing a project on art and commissioning. And I started to do these courses, which are always very hands-on. So we always have one project we work on, either non-commercial or commercial. And we go through like the history of art commissioning, and it says here, as you see, portraits of aristocratic family members in the Renaissance, like the Medicis, to digital takeovers on social media, so it has a really wide range. And then we also talk about the conditions of working with different stakeholders, you know, about contracts, about different partnerships, what can be art in public, and who is the community, and so on. And then we have a hands-on project. So this time it's this hotel, which has a really moving history. It was hotel built in the 70s when Zurich realized that they need more 5-star hotels. There was a demand to have more 5-star hotels because most of the sector was kind of a low budget. And this hotel was built quite far away from the center. It's kind of on a hill in a kind of scenic area. And was very glamorous in the beginning of when it was built. It had a swimming pool, all the stars were hanging out there. They have a kind of a track of Grace Jones, Freddie Mercury, Elton John. Whenever big acts came to the town, they were staying in this hotel. But do we have time to watch another short clip, or? Yeah, not all of it, but I just wanted to show maybe just the part. So I skipped the glamorous part.
Die Presse war begeistert.
Just more
Es
about
gäbe wohl
images.
kaum jemanden,
But
der
just
nicht
to show you how it
zugestimmt
looked
hätte,
like
dass
in the
das
70s,
Rätsel, wo
and then I go
Atlantis
to the
liege, von Stunde an
90s.
gelöst wäre, schreibt die NZZ. Nicht Platons sagenumwobenes Inselreich war gemeint, sondern das Atlantis, ein innovatives Luxushotel, das am 10. November 1970 in Zürich am Hang des Uetliberges seine Tore
Quite nice
öffnete.
architecture, so it's
Mit seinen 330 Zimmern sollte es nicht nur der grassierenden Hotelbettnot der 60er Jahre entgegenwirken, sondern auch neue Maßstäbe in Sachen Luxus setzen. Es sei anders als alle anderen, war der Slogan, mit dem das hypermoderne Erstklasse
okay. So I just go to the more recent history. So what happened? The hotel was at one point it got out of fashion and it was not really updated to the standards of nowadays. And the person who owned it sold it, and they couldn't find a new buyer. So the building was getting more and more run down. And I show you.
Das Atlantis bleibt allerdings ein Ladenhüter und steht ab 2004 leer. Als 2007 eine Immobilienfirma aus Katar in die Luxemburger Holding einsteigt, keimt Hoffnung. Zur Euro 2008 soll das Atlantis im neuen Glanz erstrahlen. Stattdessen ziehen Flüchtlinge ein. Auf sie folgen Hausbesetzer. 2011 wird das Atlantis zum Studentenwohnheim.
So, da kommen wir jetzt auf den Balkon.
Die letzte Form einer Zwischennutzung auf Zeit. Denn die neue Hotel Atlantis AG, eine Schweizer Tochter der Luxemburger Rosebud-Gruppe, wartet auf das Go für den Umbau des Hotels.
So anyway, in the 2004, since they couldn't find a new buyer, when they found a new buyer, the building could not kind of revitalize as they wished, so it became an asylum for refugees for a while, and then later on it became a student's dorm, and then it was also squatted for a while. And so it has a quite interesting history, a very good architecture, and now the building was sold to to this person, to Kabil Mulchadani. He's a billionaire from Dubai, Indian origin. And Kabir approached the school because he said he would like to work with the students. And of course, first we were a little bit like hesitant. And after several meetings, we decided to start a collaboration and discussion also with the students to do several projects within the hotel. And we are working now. The students are there now, right now, as a group. We went to see the building, and yeah, so this is like a work in progress. We are, and the students already made different proposals, working also with the history, because the briefing from the client was, and I call him client since it's also a paid job for the students, was that he would like to deal with this history of the building and also with the history of Zurich. And we will see if we can find a common ground or if this project will fail. We also talked about that with the students. It could also, of course, be that it can fail. It's a little bit like a risky project, but we will see. Maybe it will be also really interesting. I think the process will be very interesting. I have some portfolios from the students, but I will not show them now. The next project I would like to show, I'm back again to the map, and as you see, here's the school. And as I mentioned, it's the District 5, which used to be kind of a very bad district and not very popular to live there. And as you know, Zurich had a big drug problem in the 80s, had a very also partly progressive drug politics, people could be on the street and they were given free injection utensils and also methadone later on. And also the red light district was quite big, so the combination of the drug users with the red light district in the center of Zurich became quite difficult. So everything was moved towards the west to this area 5. And as you see, we are next to the Bundesasylzentrum, the asylum center where people are put in detention, and this is people who are waiting for deportation. And here in the back, here is a new building which I'm going to show you. It's a Department for Criminal Investigation, and this is how city planners think. They put the art school in this area and think that this will kind of gentrify the area. And these are just some images from the 80s from this area. It was quite like kind of heavy, and I remember it from going to Zurich because I grew up on the border to Switzerland in Bregenz. So we were going to see concerts to Zurich, or to maybe see some exhibitions at the time, I don't know, at the Kunsthaus Zurich or so on. And so I was exposed to this at the train station and around the areas where the concerts happened. Also, as I said, prostitution is legalized, and the city is Zurich, because they're very orderly and very after rules. They have these kind of, they called Farichtungsboxen. I don't know the word in English. These are boxes where people can drive in and have sex with a professional prostitute. And this is how it looks in the evening. They also have like a light show going on. And this is quite common in Zurich. You have it in different areas, and it's in the area where the school is as well. And this is very recent, so this is kind of the last thing I wanted to show you. It's an exhibition curated by Shimchik and the Department of Criminal Investigation, and there was a short public opening during the last 3 days. It's called Other Voices, Other Rooms, and it's an art in public commission. It was an open call, and Adam and his team won this competition to develop the project for a new building. And again, on the right side, this is our school, and in the back, this is the new Department for Criminal Investigation, which is the move-in was on Monday. So this is the entrance situation. They had like very kind of classic announcement for the exhibition. But when you enter it, this is kind of how the building or the interior looks like, and it was open to public for the 3 days. So I guess most of the people who came to see didn't come for the art, but just to see the building, because it's quite intriguing. Since we will probably never be in this situation to be in a detention cell like this. Everything has round corners, so people cannot hurt themselves, and it's very minimalistic, but also very brutal in a way, like as you see, kind of. And Adam's proposal was to create memory for the future, that's how he called it. And he invited Swiss and international artists to deal with the situation of the different stakeholders again in such a context, if it's the perpetrators, if it's the police, the employees, or if it's the victims. This proposal was submitted 2 years ago, and in between Adam had to deal with like a personal trauma because his brother was murdered this year. It was really horrible on the street in Holland. So he said also it was such a kind of strange shift because first, of course, he was always thinking more of the people who are in detention and not of the employees. And then suddenly also it shifted because suddenly he also felt for the employees who have to deal with criminals and perpetrators. This is just a kind of a image where the guns are stored when the police is in duty, and when they're in duty, they take out the guns out of these boxes, and it's like a. So what you could see were like small interventions which were only temporary because they have to be removed, of course. And there are just few pieces that will be permanently on display. The whole process was also a work by an artist, Melanie Hoffmann, who photographed everything, also how the artists work, the background, kind of the making of, and her photographs will be displayed as a permanent installation. They will be black and white, they're very kind of subtle. And these are different interventions by artists like Ross Birrell and David Harding. David Harding is already the older generation of an artist who runs the environmental department at the Glasgow School of Art, and Ross Birrell is also a professor at the school. And then there are some younger generation of artists like Banu Tsetetoglu, Zehra Dogan. Melanie Hoffmann is the one who is doing the documentation, Hiva Ka and Daniel Knorr from Berlin. And we went with the students, since Adam is based in Zurich now as well. We were able to ask him to give us a tour and to have a discussion about the context of making art in public in such a difficult context. And he showed us around, and this is how they solved the labels, because they were not allowed, besides of one work, to install on the walls. This was Daniel Knorr. He made a piece which he already did when he was a student, but on a smaller scale. And it's a kind of pendle, and it's supposed to hang from the ceiling. But of course it was not allowed to do that, so it's kind of resting on the ground. And the dorm he was, he came also as a refugee. He has a Romanian origin, but grew up in Germany, and so it kind of reminded him of these kind of institutional buildings when he arrived to Germany as well. This is a permanent piece. The word sorry in different languages, and it's kind of installed all around a building, and it also leaves it kind of open who is sorry and to whom is somebody sorry, and why. So these were the labels. You resist me, but I will break you anyway, by Zehra Dogan. It was a piece where the artist smashes against a mirror, and the rhythm is kind of looped, so it becomes almost like a sound of a machine gun. And it gets like louder and louder and louder, and also kind of maybe refers to the situation of the detainees. This was a quite interesting piece. It's called You Can't Make Strip Search, I'm Already Naked, by Zehra Dogan, and it was in this kind of peeping Tom hole. You had to kind of look through it, and then you saw a very small video in the back. And I don't have the video because it was not possible to film it, but this is the storyboard for it, and the artist asked a person to follow the commands when police does a strip search. So there is a very strict instruction, so it's also like an instruction piece when the police does strip search, what they have to say. They're not allowed to kind of improvise or do things, just to make sure that everything is correct. And in the video you saw a person doing exactly these moves until the person is naked, and you saw the text as a subtitle. So now I would like to end again with the picture of the students, because they're kind of in the main focus of the university, and I don't know if you have any questions. I would like to stop here.
Thank you very much, Svetlana. Thank you very much. I will ask friends to keep your questions for the further round after the presentation of Barbara Hall and Paul Rajakovic. We will have a quiet an hour to speak and to discuss, so please keep your thoughts. And thank you, Svetlana, for pointing this very interesting contrast between prosperity and crime, between these restrictions and relief, which is somehow very present at the particular in the city. So I think there will be some interesting thoughts and questions. So we'll have a 5 minutes break, pause, to just switch the techniques, and we will continue. We are not in a hurry, but please have a coffee, and we'll be back in a minute.